The lecture hall fell silent as Professor Thainvik tapped his clawed appendage against the holographic display. Numbers danced across the translucent screen, each calculation more damning than the last. 1 standard gravity, he announced, his 3 eyes scanning the assembled students from a dozen different worlds. 0.98 meters per second squared. This is the threshold where biological tissue begins to collapse under its own weight. No known species can survive prolonged exposure to such crushing force. A tentacle shot up from the Quarati section. Thainvik nodded. But Professor, what about the dense worlders from Sector 9? Extinct, Thainvik replied flatly. Their atmospheric compression killed them before they could evolve past it. Next question. That was when the door hissed open. Every sensory organ in the room swiveled toward the entrance. A creature stood there, bipedal, moving with an ease that seemed impossible given the station's artificial gravity. The thing was covered in synthetic fabrics, had bilateral symmetry, and only 2 eyes. 2. How did it even perceive depth properly? Sorry I'm late, the creature said, its vocal cords producing sounds without any clicking or proper resonance. Traffic was murder coming from the docking bay. Thainvik's middle eye twitched. This is Advanced Xenobiology 312. Are you lost? No. The creature pulled out a data pad, checked something, then grinned. Thainvik had studied enough species to recognize a threat display when he saw one, even if this one showed an alarming number of bone protrusions in its mouth. This is Professor Thainvik's class, right? I'm Marcus Webb, new exchange student from the Terran Educational Initiative. The professor's chromatophores flickered through several colors that roughly translated to confusion, disbelief, and mild nausea. Terran, he repeated slowly. Terra, the death world in Sector 7 that the Council quarantined. That's the one. Marcus moved down the steps toward an empty seat. Several students recoiled as he passed. Though I gotta say, calling it a death world seems a bit dramatic. Sure, we've got some weather issues and a few bitey animals, but it's home, you know? Thainvik watched the human sit down, his exoskeleton creaking with tension. The creature just folded itself into the chair like gravity was a minor suggestion rather than an oppressive force. The station maintained exactly 1.0 gravities. Standard. Comfortable for most species only when they were inside support harnesses or gravitational dampening fields. This thing was just sitting there. Mr. Webb, Thainvik began carefully. Perhaps you didn't understand the nature of this facility. We operate at 1 standard gravity. The same force I was just explaining would crush most biological organisms into paste. Marcus blinked. Yeah, I heard that part. Pretty wild theory. It's not a theory. It's physics. Right. The human leaned back in his chair. Actually leaned back, compressing his spine voluntarily. So, how am I not crushed then? The classroom erupted. A Vexian in the front row made a sound like grinding gears. 2 Polarian twins began gesticulating wildly with their wing membranes. Someone's translation device sparked and died from trying to process multiple expletives simultaneously. Thainvik held up a primary manipulator for silence. His scientific mind was already racing through possibilities. Gravitational anomaly? Localized field distortion? Some kind of protective technology hidden in those primitive garments. You're telling me, the professor said slowly, that your species evolved in 1 gravity? Naturally. Well, yeah. Marcus shrugged. The gesture made several students gasp as they watched his shoulder joints move freely against the crushing force. I mean, that's just normal for us. What do you guys usually have? A Kellyan spoke up, her voice translator barely managing the whisper. 0.27 gravities. Anything above 0.4 requires full medical support. 0.18. Added a Morphean, its gelatinous body rippling with distress. 0.3 is lethal. Marcus looked around the room, and something shifted in his expression. That threat display vanished, replaced by what Thainvik's database suggested might be concern. Oh, the human said quietly. Oh wow. So when you guys said death world, you really meant it, huh? Your planet should be impossible, Thainvik stated. The gravity alone would prevent complex life from developing. The atmospheric pressure readings we've received suggest your air is thick enough to crush respiratory systems. Your solar radiation levels would sterilize most worlds. And according to our limited data, 70% of your surface is covered in a corrosive compound that dissolves most known materials. You mean water? Is that what you call it? Marcus stood up, and half the class flinched. He raised his hands in what Thainvik hoped was a peaceful gesture. Look, I think we got off on the wrong foot here. I'm not trying to break any laws of physics or whatever. I'm just a guy who wants to learn about alien biology. My biology. Your biology. All the biologies. Thainvik's 3 eyes focused independently on the human. His scientific curiosity was wrestling with his survival instincts, and curiosity was winning. Sit down, Mr. Webb, he said finally. It appears we have much to discuss, starting with how your species didn't die out in its first generation. Marcus sat, and the professor noticed something peculiar. When the human settled into the chair, the metal frame creaked slightly under the weight distribution. Just how dense was this creature's skeletal structure? 3 cycles later, the biology lab looked like a disaster zone. Equipment lay scattered across workstations, holographic displays flickered with data that made no sense, and Professor Thainvik was currently holding his head in 2 of his 6 manipulators while the other 4 frantically recalibrated a bone density scanner for the 7th time. This is impossible, he muttered, watching the numbers climb higher. The machine must be broken. That's what you said about the last 4 machines, pointed out his teaching assistant, a Vrelian named Kip whose eye stalks drooped with exhaustion. Marcus sat on the examination platform. Swinging his legs back and forth like gravity was just a fun suggestion. He had removed his upper garment, revealing a structure of muscle and tissue that defied every principle of efficient biological engineering. The human caught Thainvik staring and grinned again. Want me to do some push-ups or something? Might help with your data. Push-ups, Thainvik repeated, his translator struggling with the term. Explain. Oh, you know. Marcus dropped to the floor. The impact of his body mass hitting the deck plating made a sound like someone dropping a small cargo container. Before anyone could stop him, he positioned himself parallel to the ground, supported only by his hands and feet, and began lowering and raising his entire body mass using just his upper limbs. Kip made a sound like air escaping from a punctured hull. Is he fighting gravity? For fun. Apparently. Thainvik watched the human complete 20 repetitions without visible strain. His medical scanner was screaming warnings about impossible muscle fiber density and cardiovascular efficiency that shouldn't exist. Mr. Webb, please stop before you damage the floor plating. Marcus bounced back to his feet, barely breathing harder. Sorry, Professor. I've just been cooped up in the station for days. Getting a little antsy without my morning run. Your morning what? Run. You know, moving fast on foot for several kilometers? Gets the blood pumping, clears the head. Thainvik's chromatophores flashed through colors that didn't have names in most languages. You move at speed, in 1 gravity, voluntarily, for recreational purposes? Well, yeah. Some people prefer swimming, but the station doesn't have a pool big enough, so running it is. Swimming, Kip whispered, moving through that corrosive water compound. For fun. It's really not corrosive. Marcus protested. It's literally what we're mostly made of. Like 60% water by mass. The scanner in Thainvik's grip sparked and died. He set it down carefully, trying to maintain his professional composure. 20 years of teaching xenobiology, and nothing had prepared him for this. Let me understand this correctly, he said, pacing on 4 of his 6 legs. Your species evolved in 1 standard gravity. You are composed primarily of a compound that dissolves most known materials. You perform strenuous physical activity for entertainment. Your skeletal structure is approximately 4 times denser than any other known sapient species. And you consider all of this normal? When you put it that way, it sounds weird, Marcus admitted. But yeah, pretty much. Earth is just Earth, you know? We didn't realize we were special until we met you guys. Special, Thainvik said flatly. Mr. Webb, your species shouldn't exist. The energy requirements alone to move that much mass against 1 gravity would require a metabolism so inefficient you would need to eat constantly. Marcus scratched his head. I mean, I do eat like 5 times a day. Is that a lot? The professor's translator made a sound like it was choking. Kip's eye stalks went rigid with shock. A Polarian student who had been observing from the corner fainted, their wing membranes fluttering as they collapsed into their mobility field. 5 times, Thainvik repeated. Per standard cycle. Sometimes 6 if I'm working out hard. Oh, and snacks. Definitely need snacks. This is insane. Kip checked the Polarian student's vitals. then looked back at Marcus with something between awe and terror. Do you know how much energy that represents? Most species eat once every 3 cycles. Some go weeks between meals. Marcus looked genuinely surprised. Really? Don't you get hungry? Hungry. Thainvik sat down heavily on his support platform. His exoskeleton suddenly felt too tight. Mr. Webb, hunger is a survival mechanism for when nutrition becomes critical. It's not supposed to be a constant state. Huh. The human looked thoughtful. That explains why the cafeteria staff always looks panicked when I show up. I thought they just didn't like me. They're terrified, Kip said bluntly. You consumed 3 days' worth of station rations in one sitting yesterday. The quartermaster filed a formal complaint. Oh, come on. I was hungry after the shuttle ride. Space travel makes me snacky. Thainvik pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's geological and biological data. The information was limited, most of it gathered by long-range probes before the Council had slapped a quarantine designation on the entire system. What he saw made his 3 eyes hurt. Atmospheric oxygen levels at 21%. Anything above 10% was considered a fire hazard. Surface temperatures that swung 50 degrees in a single cycle. Weather patterns that included frozen water falling from the sky and electrical discharges powerful enough to vaporize trees. Tectonic activity that regularly reshaped entire continents. And somehow, life had not just survived there, but thrived. Your planet is trying to kill everything on it, he said finally. Marcus laughed, and the sound echoed through the lab like a seismic event. Yeah, Earth's kind of a rough neighborhood. But hey, it made us tough. Built character and all that. Built character. Thainvik repeated numbly. So what else do you want to test? I'm pretty curious about this whole thing too, honestly. I never thought about how different we might be until I got here, and everyone kept freaking out whenever I moved. The professor looked at his broken equipment, his traumatized assistant, his unconscious student, and the cheerful human who had just casually destroyed 200 years of established xenobiological theory. He had so many questions. The faculty emergency meeting had been called at what the humans apparently referred to as 3 in the morning, which Marcus helpfully explained was a time when most of his species was unconscious for several hours. The revelation that humans needed to shut down their consciousness daily just to function had caused Dean Vortessa to require medical attention. Now, 12 of the station's most prominent scientists sat around an oval table in the administrative wing, and every single one of them was staring at the holographic data streaming across the central display. He broke 6 pieces of testing equipment, Professor Thainvik explained, his voice carrying the weight of existential exhaustion. Not through malice. Through existing. Dr. Millax, the station's chief physician, manipulated the medical scans with her delicate appendages. Her species, the Threnal, were known for their analytical precision. Right now, she looked like her brain was trying to escape through her auditory canals. These cardiovascular readings are absurd, she said. His primary circulation organ, this heart, pumps liquid through his body at pressures that would rupture most beings. And he has this happen continuously. Every second. For his entire life. How long do they live, someone asked. 70 to 90 rotations around their star, Thainvik replied. Approximately 80 standard years. The room went silent. Commander Rexith, the station's security chief, broke the quiet with a sound like grinding stones. 80 years of that pressure? My people's circulation organs last 30 years before requiring replacement, and we operate at 1/10 that force. There's more, Dr. Millax continued, pulling up a molecular scan. His cells operate with oxygen as a primary component. Direct oxygen. Not filtered, not processed through secondary systems. He breathes it straight into his body multiple times per minute. That's a highly reactive compound. Dean Vortessa had recovered enough to participate, though her chromatophores still flickered with distress. Oxygen combustion is how we power industrial facilities. They use it for thought, Thainvik said flatly. Their brains require constant oxygen flow, or they suffer permanent damage within minutes. Their entire species is perpetually seconds away from catastrophic system failure. A Morphean scientist named Drell oozed forward slightly. What happens if this oxygen flow stops? Brain death in 4 to 6 minutes. Complete cellular breakdown shortly after. That's horrifying. It gets worse, Thainvik said, because apparently the universe had decided he hadn't suffered enough. I asked Mr. Webb about common injuries on his world, things that happen frequently to his species. He pulled up his notes, and several council members recoiled at the list. Broken bones that heal themselves. Lacerations that seal within days. They can lose up to 30% of their blood volume and survive. They have an entire system dedicated to clotting wounds automatically. They regularly survive impacts that would liquefy most species. And perhaps most disturbing, they consider all of this normal childhood experience. Childhood, Millax repeated. Their young encounter these injuries commonly. He described something called a playground. Apparently, young humans climb to heights of several meters and then deliberately fall for entertainment. Commander Rexith stood abruptly, his carapace rattling. That's child endangerment. Who allows this? Their parents. They consider it character building. There's that phrase again, Drell muttered. What does it mean? Thainvik's three eyes focused on nothing in particular. I'm not entirely sure anymore. I think it translates roughly to making oneself stronger through repeated exposure to things that should kill you. Dr. Millax enlarged a section of Marcus's skeletal scan. Look at these stress markers. See these tiny fractures throughout the bone structure? They've healed denser than the surrounding tissue. His skeleton has been broken and repaired so many times it's created a reinforcement pattern. How old is this human? Dean Vertessa asked weakly. 26 standard years. And he's already sustained this much damage. According to him, he had a normal childhood. He seemed confused when I expressed concern. The door chimed, and every being in the room jumped. The security feed showed Marcus standing outside, holding what appeared to be a container of some kind. He waved at the camera with that disturbing display of bone protrusions that humans called a smile. Commander Rexith reached for the communication panel. Mr. Webb, this is a private meeting. Oh, sorry. The human's voice crackled through the speakers. I just thought you guys might be hungry. It's been like 4 hours since the cafeteria closed, and I figured with an emergency meeting and all, you might want snacks. I made cookies. Silence filled the chamber. He made what? Drell asked. Cookies, Thainvik explained tiredly. Apparently a food item created through thermal application to a mixture of ground plant matter, crystallized nutrients, and unfertilized avian reproductive cells. Why would anyone combine those things? Because they taste good, according to human logic. Dr. Millax checked her chronometer. He's correct. It has been 4 hours. Most humans would require sustenance by now given their metabolic rates. Is he offering to share his food? Apparently. That's actually quite thoughtful, Dean Vertessa admitted. Even if the dietary content would probably kill most of us. Should we let him in? Thainvik considered this. On one appendage, the human had accidentally traumatized half his department, destroyed expensive equipment, and shattered fundamental scientific principles. On another appendage, he was genuinely trying to be helpful and seemed distressed when he learned his presence caused fear. Let him in, the professor decided. But someone check what this cookie substance contains before anyone consumes it. The door opened, and Marcus entered carrying his container. The scent that preceded him made several scientists' chemical receptors flare with alarm. Sugar concentrations that high were usually toxic. He set the container on the table, and through the transparent material, they could see dozens of small brown objects studded with what appeared to be chunks of processed cocoa. I wasn't sure what you guys could eat, Marcus said apologetically, so I kept it simple. Just flour, sugar, butter, eggs, vanilla, and chocolate chips. Oh, and a little salt to bring out the sweetness. Salt, Commander Rexith said. Sodium chloride. You add poison to enhance flavor. Marcus blinked. Wait, is salt actually poisonous to you guys? In concentrations above 0.01%, yes. The human looked down at his cookies with new understanding. Okay, so maybe these aren't great for sharing. But hey, I tried, right? He pulled out one of the cookies and bit into it, chewing with apparent pleasure while every scientist in the room watched a being voluntarily consume what amounted to a toxic waste cocktail. Mr. Webb, Thainvik said carefully, why did you really come here? Marcus swallowed, took another bite, and spoke around the food in a display of table manners that would horrify most civilized species. Honestly, I heard through the station network that you guys were having an emergency meeting about me. Figured I might have messed something up. Wanted to apologize if I caused problems. The simple sincerity in his voice cut through the academic panic like a blade. You haven't caused problems, Dr. Millax said gently. You've caused a complete reevaluation of everything we thought we understood about biology, physics, and the nature of life itself. Oh, Marcus considered this. Is that bad? We're not sure yet. Weeks after Marcus Webb's arrival, the lecture hall was packed beyond capacity. Students from every department had crammed themselves into Professor Thainvik's advanced xenobiology class, some hanging from the ceiling mounts, others floating in neutral buoyancy fields just to get a glimpse of the human. Word had spread across the station like a virus. The Death World creature was real, and he was taking questions. Thainvik stood at his podium, looking more exhausted than anyone had ever seen him. His exoskeleton had dulled from stress, and his 3 eyes had developed a nervous tic. Beside him, Marcus sat casually on a reinforced chair, drinking something he called coffee that had sent the chemical analysis lab into a panic when they discovered its caffeine content could theoretically be weaponized. Before we begin, the professor announced, I want to establish ground rules. Mr. Webb has graciously agreed to this demonstration, but I will not tolerate anyone fainting, panicking, or filing psychological damage claims. What you are about to witness is simply how humans exist. Naturally. Every day. A Kellyan student raised a tentacle. Is it true he can survive in vacuum for short periods? No, Marcus said quickly. That's a rumor. I would die in vacuum just like anyone else. Well, maybe I'd last like 15 seconds longer because we can hold our breath pretty well, but I'd definitely die. 15 seconds, someone whispered. He says that like it's not impressive. Can we see your strength? Asked a brave Relian from the back. The reports say you can lift 300 times your body weight. Marcus laughed. No way, that's insane. That's like ant proportions. I can maybe bench press my body weight, which is about 80 kilos. That's pretty average for humans, honestly. Thainvik pulled up a comparison chart. Mr. Webb, the average Vrelian can lift 0.05 times their body mass. You can lift 1 times your mass. That is a 2,000% difference. Oh, Marcus processed this. When you put it that way, yeah, I guess that's kind of wild. A Morphean professor who had been observing from the corner spoke up. What about your healing capacity? Can you demonstrate? Demonstrate healing? That takes days. I can't just do it on command. Perhaps a minor injury, the Morphean suggested. Something that would heal quickly? Marcus looked uncomfortable. I mean, I could give myself a paper cut, but that seems weird. A paper cut. Thainvik's translator struggled with the concept. Explain. You know, when thin material slices your skin. Happens all the time with documents or food packaging. Stings like crazy but heals in a day or two. The room erupted in confused chatter. Dr. Millax, who had been invited to observe, stood up from her position in the front row. You're telling me your species has invented a material so sharp it regularly cuts your dermis, and you continue to use this material for information storage? Well, we mostly use digital now, but yeah, paper's still around. It's convenient. It's a weapon. It's really not, though. A young student, barely old enough for advanced studies, raised a manipulator. Mr. Webb, is it true your planet has areas where water falls from the sky with such force it can damage structures? Oh, you mean rain? Or hail, I guess. Yeah, that happens. Hail can get pretty gnarly. I've seen hailstones the size of my fist. He held up his clenched hand, and several students made sounds of distress at the size of the projectile he was describing. And you just go outside in this, the student pressed. I mean, you use an umbrella if you have one. Or a coat. Or you just get wet. Marcus shrugged. It's just water. The corrosive compound. It's not corrosive. Commander Rexith entered from the side door, his heavy footsteps announcing his presence. He had been skeptical of this entire demonstration, but scientific curiosity had won over security protocols. I have a question, he rumbled. Your species has something called adrenaline, a chemical that enhances physical performance during stress. Is this real? Marcus's expression shifted, becoming more serious. Yeah, that's real. It's like an emergency response system. When you're in danger, your body dumps adrenaline into your bloodstream, and suddenly you can run faster, hit harder, ignore pain. There are stories of people lifting vehicles off trapped family members because of adrenaline. You're describing a combat enhancement drug that your body produces naturally, I guess. Never thought about it that way. Thainvik pulled up medical data. Mr. Webb experienced an adrenaline response during his physical examination when he thought he heard an alarm. His heart rate doubled, His muscle efficiency increased by 40%, and his pain response dropped to nearly nothing. All within seconds. What happened? A student asked breathlessly. It was a false alarm, Marcus said sheepishly. Just someone's communication device. But yeah, I definitely felt the adrenaline kick. Made me jumpy for like an hour afterward. An hour, Dr. Millax noted. The enhanced state persists for an hour. Sometimes longer if you're really stressed. Comes with a crash afterward though. Makes you tired. Dean Vertessa had been silent until now, but she finally spoke. Mr. Webb, I have studied your species' history through the limited data we've gathered. You have survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, pandemics, and countless wars. Your species has been knocked down repeatedly, and you keep getting back up. What? Marcus was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. The lecture hall held its collective breath. I think, he said slowly, it's because we don't know any other way to be. Earth is brutal, yeah? It throws everything at us. Earthquakes, hurricanes, droughts, floods. Animals that want to eat us, diseases that want to kill us, environments that want to freeze or cook us. But it's our home. We adapt because we have to. We survive because giving up isn't really in our nature. He stood up, and the room tensed, but he just stretched, his joints popping audibly. Look, I get that we're weird to you guys. You're pretty weird to us too, if I'm being honest. But weird doesn't mean bad. It just means different. Yeah, we come from a rough planet. Yeah, we're built tough because of it. But that same toughness made us curious enough to build spaceships and brave enough to leave our world to meet you guys. So maybe Earth being a nightmare planet isn't such a bad thing after all. The silence that followed was different from before. Not fearful or shocked, but contemplative. Thainvik looked at his student roster, at the human who had turned his entire curriculum upside down, and felt something shift in his understanding. Perhaps survival wasn't just about existing in optimal conditions. Perhaps there was strength in adversity, growth in challenge, and wisdom in endurance. Class dismissed, he said quietly. I need to rewrite my entire lecture series. As students filed out, many approached Marcus to ask more questions, their fear replaced by fascination. The human answered each one with patience and good humor, occasionally demonstrating some minor physical feat that would send them scurrying back in amazement before curiosity drew them close again. Dr. Millax approached Thainvik as they watched the interaction. We were wrong, she said simply. About so many things. Yes, the professor agreed. But now we have the opportunity to learn, to understand that life finds a way, even in the harshest conditions. Especially in the harshest conditions. Marcus caught his eye across the room and waved. That strange human smile, bright and genuine. Thainvik waved back, using a gesture he had learned from studying human customs. It felt awkward with 6 limbs, but the human's delighted laugh made it worthwhile. Perhaps, the professor thought, the galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place. And somewhere, on a blue and green planet spinning through the darkness of space, billions of humans went about their day, casually defying physics and eating their 5 meals, completely unaware that they had just redefined what it meant to be alive in the universe. So what did you think? Did this story surprise you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this sci-fi story, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing science fiction stories every week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story. Rocket.